balance, fulfillment, and joy. I'm Kayla Sweet, and together we're going to have fun and create change from the inside out. I'm so glad you're here.
Welcome back, my friends. Today we are going to be having a soulful conversation with an amazing guest. We are going to be talking about becoming our bigger mission, and we'll get more into that as the show progresses. But this is really about the process of alignment, the process of healing, and all of the inner work that has to happen so that we can lead from a place of wholeness and growth, so that we can contribute to the healing of our world. And this work isn't easy and it doesn't happen by accident, but it's so necessary. And it's what I am so passionate to show up and do every day. Because as each of us heals ourselves or parts of ourselves, we're contributing to the healing of the world. And our guest today, she represents and embodies all of these things and so much more. She has so much wisdom to share. I'm incredibly excited to have Lainne Love joining us today. Lainne is an award-winning spiritual psychology coach. She's a best-selling author. She is a leading edge healer, a CEO, and a proud mother. So, all of these hats that she's wearing, and she's made time to spend with us today to have this really deep and important conversation. With that, I will pass it over to you. Welcome, Lainne. I'm so excited that you're here.
Hello, good day, good morning, good evening, whatever it happens to be for you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast and to have this really important conversation. I'm looking forward to diving in and digging deep and helping to give people practical tools that they can start using now that will help them in living their bigger journey, their bigger
Yes.
mission, giving birth to that, and yeah, helping them to have the tools along the way to make it enjoyable and accelerate the process.
Yes, and that's one of the most important things I think is to bring this work into the practical and to bring it into the day-to-day so that these aren't just big ideas that sound nice, but things that we can really bring to life in our lives on a day-to-day basis. And I can't wait to hear everything you have to say. But before we get to that, would you be able to tell everyone just a little bit more about yourself, the work that you do in the world, your projects as an author, as a spiritual psychology coach? Just give us the elevator version of Lainne.
Yeah, the lowdown. So why you should listen to what I have to say is really what that's all about, right? Like why? What cred do I have? What street cred do I have? So I am an award-winning spiritual psychology coach, and that what does that mean? That means that I've studied a lot of different modalities along the way because I was interested in healing. One, because I just always was interested in helping people. And two, because of course, as a human being, I had a lot of my own stuff that I was interested in healing. I have experienced all different kinds of abuse and trauma, like many of us. And I have had to, dig deep within myself to overcome a lot of challenges and find a way and make a way in the world. Seemingly, I say seemingly on my own because although most of it was me, I don't have a partner. I didn't have a partner, a husband, or a family that was rallying around me and supporting me. I did not come from money or wealth. So I didn't have those supports to help me either, because I know a lot of times, those are I'm going to say excuses just outright that we use for why we can't or why we're not achieving something is because we don't have either the support or the resources. And it's not an excuse. It certainly does make things more challenging. I know it felt like that for me in really like having to figure out, how do I build these things? How do I raise a child? How do I work? How do I write? How do I build a business? How do I further educate myself? How do I take care of myself? All of these things that take time and energy and money. How do I do that all on my own with a child? And I just say all of that because you just can. Like you can figure it out. It's going to look different for everybody. We're all able and capable of doing different things, but the point is that we're capable of more. You're always capable of more than you're giving yourself credit for, and more than you think that you can do. I just got to the point where it was just, well, this is the path I'm on, and that doesn't really open up any possibilities or options for me. And if I look forward into my life, am I going to be happy with what it is that I create, or am I going to have a lot of regrets?
Mm.
And the answer for me was I would have a lot of regrets, and I would really feel like I actually wasn't living my life, not the life that I came here to live. And I think most people have that feeling within themselves, like there has to be more than this. I know that I was meant for more. I know that I was meant to do something, and that something isn't what I'm doing.
Mm.
I think that that is a feeling that almost every person has. And so it's really, really relatable. And I can definitely understand the frustration and the depression and the anger and the feelings of victimization that come with that, and the disempowerment. And you can work through all of those things. You can work through all of that step by step, taking action and getting to the place that you want to be. And even if you never get to the place where you want to be, it feels so much better to be on the journey rather than just sitting back and like never having set off on the journey in the first place.
Mm.
So those are so along the way, I gathered a lot of different tools as I was trying to heal myself. And I'm still working on myself. I'm still working on my physical body. I'm still working on my spiritual body and my mental and emotional self. I've just gotten to the point now where I can look back and start to integrate all of the experiences and get the wisdom from it, where I'm not as charged emotionally when I'm meeting things that are triggers or traumas. There's a little bit more grace that I have within myself. And to me, that is sort of like the measurement of being able to embody the tools, embody the knowledge, and embody the experience that I've gained along the way. And also, I just am curious. I'm insatiably curious. I love learning. I'm always taking a class. I'm always working with a coach, a mentor, as something, because I just have that insatiable need and desire to grow, which is probably something that your listeners can relate to. So
Yes.
just, yeah, just keep going. I've acquired a lot of tools along the way, and I didn't necessarily see how they fit together. That was also part of the frustration process for me was, like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to school and I'm going to study this, and this is going to be the way. And then after studying and going to school and doing that particular, using that particular skill set or doing that particular job, be like, well, this isn't actually it. Damn it. Okay, so now I'll go and study this. And for me, I studied science in university. I studied shiatsu, which was amazing because that was the door opener for me in learning about traditional Chinese medicine and energetics, and studying with different world-renowned masters and going on the path of energy medicine. And then from energy, I started learning more about the mind, and I am an RTT, a rapid transformational therapist practitioner within Marissa Peer's framework. And I love her as a mentor and a teacher. Her modality is really, really amazing. And I think that as a mentor, she is also exceptional. She has this can-do attitude, everything is doable. And I really, really resonate with that. So I studied, yeah, energetics, I studied energy medicine, and then I studied working with the mind. And then that all integrates with the spirit. So, because we are a spirit, we are eternal beings, and a lot of the challenges and problems that we're facing aren't necessarily from this life. Maybe they're part of our ancestral lineage. Maybe it's something from a past parallel life. And why I say past parallel life is past lives are really parallel lives because all time is now, but that maybe is a different conversation. More people can relate to the idea of past lives. So we have all of these different factors that are affecting our here and now and the challenges that we're experiencing in our lives. So all those tools kind of combine together to spiritual psychology. And I have finally, it only took me 12, 15 years to complete my first book. And this year was my second book is released, and that's called A Bigger Mission, aptly named for this beautiful subject that we're going to be discussing today. And that is a co-creation. There's 12 of us all together, 12 authors sharing 12 stories about traumatic incidences that we have experienced in our lives, and how we got through that and what it took from us to get to the other side. And we're releasing also a workbook and an audiobook, and that was a bestseller in multiple categories. And I'm really, really proud of us. I'm proud of the book and the project. Proud of myself for leading it and getting it to completion. I'm proud of all the authors for all of the amazing work that they did and learning how to, develop that skill of being able to write and sharing these really raw, real stories about life, because I think that's how we grow. It's certainly how I grow. I consume a book a week. I love books, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, textbook style. I love books, and I love learning from others. So that was a really long-winded who am I and what do I do, and maybe why what I might have to say has a little bit of street cred.
Well, I just want to say, first off, it was perfect. There's no too short or too long when it comes to your life story, right? We could go on for days and weeks and years and never be done unpacking the complexity of who we are and how we came to be in our work. So I thought that was beautifully articulated and gave some context for everyone to hold around how you got to this work and what does spiritual psychology coach mean, you know? Oh, so thank you for sharing that. And you're in such good company. As I was listening to you, was like, "Ah, no wonder I connected so much with you when we chatted before, because so much of those desires to keep growing and learning and constantly consuming information so that we can grow and heal and share, like that is so much part of my story, so much a part of the listeners' stories. We're all here together because we're invested. This podcast is internally guided life. We want to live that life. We want to keep doing that work, and it's work that's never done, and the process is really what matters. So I feel like you hit on all of that in your introduction, and it's so much deeper than just you. It's you and it's all of us. Like you have a beautiful way of capturing that collective message and meaning behind even your personal story. So thank you for sharing that. And I feel like since you started talking a little bit about a bigger mission, we can just dive right into that. I really want to hear from you, I guess, before we get into the book too much, about this process of writing and of storytelling. And then we can dive into the book a little bit more. But how have you personally experienced the healing impact of storytelling through your writing, through the work that you've done in the world? What does that look like in helping you navigate your own journey?
Yeah, that's a really great line to take this conversation, because that was really surprising to me. One, just as a consumer of books, as I mentioned, like I consume a book a week, and no matter what style of book it is, there's always some sort of beautiful, like golden nugget in there. Um, as many like fiction books are taking you on the hero's journey, which is something that every single person lives, or whether it's wisdom from a textbook, whether it's just like pure information, or it's self-development book where it's learned experience which turns into wisdom. And writing this book, A Bigger Mission, with these other amazing professionals from all around the world was super surprising and so impactful. I did not anticipate the process to be what it was. So initially, it was just like kind of a book that happened by kind of accident because I was studying with all of these amazing people. We're all continuing our education and our skill set to work with our clients. So, we're all in this group learning and developing together. And when I introduce myself and like I'm an author, usually the most amazing thing when people hear that I'm an author is that, oh, I've always wanted to write a book too. And isn't that wonderful that so many people like have a beautiful story within them that they want to share? And so I just heard that enough from enough exceptional people that I was just like, you know what? Excuse me. I just finished my first book, How to Use Hypnosis to Master Your Brain, which was also a bestseller in multiple different categories. And it took me a really long time to finally get my first book out. Like, let's not have that be your journey. If you want to be an author, I just did it. Why don't we just like do a book together? And that way, you'll learn how to do a book. You'll have the confidence to be able to say to yourself, I am an author. I can do it. So because half of it is just like, can I do it or can't I do it? That conversation you're having with yourself about how you can't do it, but you can, especially if you prove it to yourself and you do it. Or maybe for others, that's all they wanted to do was they wanted to put something in print and publish it, and they're complete with that. But either way, isn't that amazing to help wonderful people to be able to navigate that step in their life? So that's how it started. But because I'm a reader and I'm a writer, I didn't really think about the process for other people. So story development and writing development became a big part of it, about the journey, and being able to also put together the book in a way that where every story flowed, but allowing each person to maintain their unique imprint and blueprint and writing style and voice. And that birthed or unearthed this whole other way of getting to work with people, and work through the challenges that come up in your life. Another way of healing, another way of doing therapy is through the writing of your story, because as you do that, there are markers along the way where you're coming up against yourself, you're coming up against your limiting beliefs, you're coming up against trauma, you're coming up against all these things within yourself through this very creative, interesting process. So that ended up being a really big surprise, but like a new possibility for a way of working with people. Like, oh, isn't this interesting? That we could just start off writing a story and we could watch what comes up and then start to look at that and transmute that. So there was a lot of that within myself and within working with each amazing, talented author, and that I think prolonged the process. So it took us about a year to get the book out, to complete the book. But what a beautiful, surprising process it was. So if you are interested in writing and you're interested in writing as a form of healing, you can do both of those things at the same time. But if you're interested in writing and you haven't been able to start, the process that I use and the process that I walked all these beautiful authors through was just start word vomiting. I think that's the mistake that most people make, and certainly what I did is it's not good enough, it's not perfection, it's not the right idea, and it's not going to be. It's called refinement. You just start vomiting it onto a page, so you just write and write and write. But even then, How amazing is it that we live in a time where you don't even actually have to write? You can just even speak because we
Mm,
have all these tools, all this technology where you can also just speak and then you can have that transcribed either within a service or as you're speaking in real time, depending on what program you're using. So it eliminates a lot of the excuses as to why we're not doing something that we want to be doing. So if you want to write, I recommend just verbally vomiting it out or, written word vomit and just keep writing and writing until you're complete. And you can let it sit or you can go through it and you can start to find like the golden nuggets that are there and then taking those points and building upon them. That's
mm,
a great way to start. Another great way to start is just with a skeleton, where you just go through and like, okay, I know what I want my book to be. It's about plants. Great. Then I'm going to write 10 chapters. So 10, like the title of what the chapters would be. Green plants are good. Purple plants are amazing. I don't know. Yellow plants are whatever, whatever the titles are. And then within the title, then you write bullet points. So like just start, and it's all arbitrary numbers, right? I mean, 10 chapters is a good place to start with in terms of the length of a book, but and then within the chapters, once you have the chapter headings, and you make your subheadings. So there's going to be, I don't know, 10 points under green plants are good. There's going to be try for 10 because each point should then be a paragraph. So then all of a sudden you have 10 chapters and then 10 points underneath each chapter title or heading, and then 10 subpoints, which is each paragraph. That's just a good way to start.
mm.
You can start to build upon that and you can start to work with it differently, but you'll start to notice like, wow, I have all of this, but half of the battle is just figuring out how to organize all the information in your head. And when you start like that, that's a wonderful first step. So both those steps are wonderful first steps.
I love that you spoke to um, two different, very different approaches because I feel like when people are wanting to tell their story, because I've heard this a lot too from so many people, and I'm guilty of it as well. I'm one of those people that's probably started writing a book 12 times, but never brought it to fruition. And I think most people know they have a story, and we're such social beings. We want to hear each other's stories. We learn through storytelling. We learn by being the storyteller and by receiving those stories of others and connecting with people. So it's such a part of who we are as human beings to want to connect and heal in this way. But it is an overwhelming thing, I think, for a lot of people. So to know they have these two approaches, okay, you can do the like stream of consciousness, word vomit writing and just get it all out and see what emerges. Or if you're somebody that's more like strategic and logical and you want to have a really clear map, or you've got some idea of where you're going and you just need to break it down, then they've got a really clear place to start there as well to start getting those details worked out. So I love those pieces of advice for people who have a story to tell and they don't know where to start. They have a place now. Um,
Yes.
that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I am curious to hear a little bit more about. So you mentioned that it was surprising as you engaged in this process, what emerged amongst yourself and in the group, and even in your prior book, what maybe had come up in you. What were some of the biggest, I guess, healing moments or transformative processes or moments where you were like, this is more than just writing a book, like something really big is happening?
Well, I think settling into the process and the more that I do the work is noticing that everything in your life is feedback and everything in your life is an opportunity for growth and is showing you what your next step is.
Mm,
So now that I can like look back on that and look and shift my perception or my perspective, I can see that it's actually not surprising because I've grown in that way to really understand that everything is just another opportunity for me to grow. But in that moment, there were so many things that were surprising. One, I didn't understand or know. It's not I just didn't know that writing your story could be so revealing into what the next steps are going to be for your healing. Most of us, maybe not all, but most of us we have things that we need to process and work through. And a lot of us are working with therapists or coaches or whatever that looks like, healers. And we're trying to figure out, like, what's that thing? Like, what is the thing that's holding me back? What is the thing that's blocking me? And there are a lot of different ways to get there, which is great because like everything works. And that's really good news, but it's like, what am I using at what time? Because that is also important. That everything works, but you also have to use the right thing at the right time, especially if you want to accelerate the process. And writing is twofold there. In one, you're actually completing a project that you've always wanted to complete. That's amazing. But there are the things that are going to come up along that way, twofold, maybe even threefold. But right away, what I get is one, just the writing of the story and the things that come up in the remembrance of what it is that you're writing. So there are things there for you to process, but also the process as a whole. There's also things along there, like, why have you been procrastinating? What comes up, like when you sit in front of your computer, what's your inner dialogue? Are you like, oh, I don't have the time for this, or oh, this is hard, or I'm stuck, or like, notice what's your inner dialogue. So that is another piece of feedback that you haven't even started writing yet, but you're just getting to the process of actually writing. And already a whole bunch of things are unfolding in front of you that's giving you the clue as to what the next step that you need to take is, so that you can do the work to clear the procrastination or clear the frustration or clear whatever that inner dialogue is for you, so that you can actually be getting the thing done. So that really surprised me. And like how much comes up and how personal it is when you're actually writing your story. It's actually a really accelerated tool for being able to work with somebody on a deeply therapeutic level.
It sounds like the processing that happens as you actually put your story to words rather than just keeping it inside, rather than just, reminiscing or having memories, collide with you at unexpected moments, completely unintentionally, like going in and excavating from your story intentionally. Like there's healing in that alone, in that process of rediscovering your life through this perspective of looking back. And then also the writing process itself, which I've done a fair share of writing. So as you were talking about like the procrastination, in my master's program, I think of my thesis. Like when I was working on my thesis, it was the biggest project I had ever undertook. And there was so many things that came up in that, like, oh, it's bringing up stuff for me, because if you're not showing up for it, why aren't you showing up for it? And what are the thoughts and the beliefs and the stories and the wounds that are causing you to, be stuck and be blocked and be frustrated? So I appreciate you kind of breaking down just the ways that this does work at like a soul level, at a spirit level. And it also shows up in really, funny, simple moments within the day, like why you're just staring at the blank screen and the feelings that are coming up in that. So I really appreciated that. Is there anything else that you want to share along the lines of, I guess, writing, storytelling, and just connecting with that bigger mission? There are a couple other things I really want to ask you about, but before we conclude like this part of our conversation, I just want to make sure there wasn't anything else that you really wanted to share, that you're feeling called to share about this process.
Yeah, I think really just get started. We get so much in our way. And And your story matters and you matter. I can't say that enough also. Like every person is here for a reason. We all have a mission. We all have a purpose. So what you have to say, the story that is within you that you're wanting to share, whether it's a story of your life or whether it's a story of fiction, there's something in it that is here to unlock, inspire, activate others. That's why it's within you. So it's listening to those calls and doing the work. And if you're having a hard time with somebody, get the help. I know a big block with people is it's the majority of the reasons that people give why they can't do something is they don't have the time or they don't have the money. Find it.
Hmm.
Find the time, find the money, you have it. Sometimes you really don't have the money. You can always find the time because you have 5 minutes. But 5 minutes isn't going to be enough. 5 minutes over 100 days. That's a lot of minutes to add up, right? Sometimes there just really isn't. I've had times in my life living in different countries where I really understood, the difference in systems and the different value of money and what it actually means to have no money. I've had my clothes fall apart and not be able to buy new clothes. So in that instance, no, actually, I don't have $5. I literally don't. I can understand what that is, but I do have 5 minutes.
Hmm.
I can go to a library. There is always something that you can do. Do not let yourself get swallowed up by your sad story or your circumstances. It's true. There can be true. It was true. I've definitely had some really tough, very heartbreaking, sad times, some suicidal times where I really didn't want to go on and I didn't think that I could. I really understand what it is to be in the really low depths or really feel like I have no resources.
Hmm.
I'm pressing that point because I I get it. And there's still an and. You do have something. You can do something, and you just got to start somewhere. You're not going to, maybe bang out your book tomorrow, or maybe you can. It's just get started and stop letting your excuses be the things that are running your life. It doesn't mean that sometimes that you shouldn't acknowledge that, okay, well, this is where I am and this is how I feel. Acknowledge it. I'm not saying to pretend that it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that don't let that thing be the thing that dictates your entire life. Yes, I'm having a really hard time. I'm struggling. Things are tough. I acknowledge that. And that weighs on my emotions, that weighs on my psyche. And I still have to dig deeper and find something within myself to be able to continue to move forward. I have to find that within myself.
Hmm.
And if you can't find it within yourself, find somebody that can help you find it within yourself. Because at the end of the day, even when we're getting help, it's still something that you have to do for yourself. And nobody can do it for you. They can do it with you. They can cheer you on and support you through it. I've certainly had some really amazing people in my life that have uplifted me and supported me and cheered me on. And I couldn't have done it without them, whether they have friends or family at different periods in my life, or teachers or mentors, or even strangers. Going back to stories, it was really listening to people and their stories
Hmm.
that were in some respects similar to mine that helped me to see, like, oh, well, they could do it. Wow, their circumstances, I thought my circumstances were shitty. Theirs were even worse than mine. Or, theirs are similar. Maybe it was a little bit better than mine, but there was still some kind of resonance there. And that's something that I really love about our book, A Bigger Mission, because we're all sharing different heartbreaking scenarios in which for some people that would be enough that they wouldn't continue to move forward, but we all found the ways within ourselves to do that. And that's definitely how I learn and grow. So do it. And if you're one of those people that just don't want to spend any money on yourself, well, start to do it. I've spent six figures easily on my education and mentors and help therapists. Thousands of dollars a month is really what I spend, what I've spent, um, and what I'll continue to spend moving forward, because that's how you do it. You don't get it. You don't get to where you're going by clenching.
Yeah.
Clenching your fists, clenching your energy, clenching. You've got to open up and get help when you need it, get help how you can get it, and push yourself out of your comfort zone. Make the space, make the room, take the risk.
So many like beautiful, beautiful pieces of wisdom in that. A few things that are really standing out to me are one, like you matter and your story matters. I feel like that alone is such a block for so many people, whether they want to write or whether they just want to heal, like to take the step to recognize that we each matter and that we each have innate worth and wholeness within us, that we can heal and move and evoke something that feels like we are connected to that bigger mission. Because you mentioned earlier, like so many of us get to a point where we were wondering, like, is this life? Like, is this what I signed up for? Like, what? There's got to be something more. And so there is something more, and you're worth it. Like that, I think is so powerful. And then if you're struggling to do what you need to do through the challenge, like get that help, get that support. There's no shame in that. It's the only way that we continue to move forward, because we need these mirrors. We need the people to reflect to us the things that we can't see, that are in our blind spots, or that we just need a safe container to work through together. So many powerful and important messages there. Ah, thank you. I loved hearing just the way that naturally kind of evolved from this writing process and from talking to people about what they've been through and how they've moved through and grown through the things that could have broken them. And we all have those moments where it's like, are we going to dig deep and heal, or are we going to let this become our story? Like we're going to become really connected with it to the point that we can't grow anymore, that we're stuck. So it's like getting unstuck.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of like getting stuck and being in this healing process, I am very curious to hear a little bit more about the generational wounding and the generational traumas, how this has shown up for you and how you've worked through them. I know you mentioned earlier that this was something that is related with your work as a spiritual coach and something that you support people through. So, what does that look like as we are doing this work? Maybe we're writing, or maybe we're working with a coach or a therapist, and other stuff is coming up that's generational, that's not just limited to our personal story. How has that shown up for you? How did you come to some of those insights?
Well, the good news is like it can feel heavier. And it is, and it's not. That's the good news, is that it kind of presents the same as something that you'd like pick up, a belief, a program that you pick up in this particular life. But you are here going back to that purpose. Like so many people have come now as the world is evolving, as consciousness is evolving, as we're entering the age of miracles. So many beautiful souls have come in with the mission to clean up the ancestral trauma, to clean up the past karma. And how does that present, or what does that look like? It's like when something feels like super heavy and extra frustrating, like, a lot of ancestral karma and trauma is related to money. The most people can relate to that, like all of this different programming, all the different energy that comes around money and abundance. And it can be really clear as to like what the programs are there, because if we look at our history, even just like human history, and see how we've evolved really, really quickly, and the different meanings that money has taken on, whether or not we think that we actually believe those things or not. Like, money is the root of all evil. Like rich people are bad. Like, money is tied to some being greedy, or, you have to be like an overlord to have a lot of money, like controlling people. There's all these different programs. And if we look at history, like in history, it would be like the lords of the land. They would have all of the money, and the peasants would be, working really hard and having to give all of their money to the people in power. And if you didn't have the money, then the consequences were extremely harsh. You would die, or maybe you would be put to death. And then we bring in religious connotations with that, and how like money is the root of all evil, how you have to give your money away to the church. Maybe there was a famine. Maybe there was a crash and your family literally starved to death from money, or maybe there really wasn't anything, or maybe they lost everything. Like there's all of these things that could be within your lineage, and most likely definitely are. And all of that energy and all of those beliefs are carried forward throughout your lineage. They're within your ancestors, and you've come here now to clear them. So that's heavy if you think about that as like a train coming towards you, all of that momentum, right? So if you're here to stop that, that's a lot of momentum, that's a lot of energy. But it doesn't mean that you can't transmute it. You're using the same tools that we have available to us to do it. It just means that, instead of doing it like maybe 10 times, you have to do it 100 times. But you've signed up to do that because you can do it and you wanted to do it. So it's just how heavy is the energy, or how stubborn is that particular pattern or belief, regardless of the different things that you've tried to do. It's going at it from several different angles. That is what ancestral or past life trauma kind of presents itself as. But in past life trauma, if your consciousness, if your higher self is taking you back to the root, if you can get to the root, then that creates like a domino effect in all directions of time, dimensions, and realities, and helps to clear the energy on that level. So that doing past life or parallel life clearing can be faster, more effective. But you can also do that within ancestral healing, as you can go back to if you ask the right questions, or if your consciousness is actually ready for that particular shift, you can go back to the inception point of that belief and clear it. And again, it's the same thing. It's that cascade of the domino effect of energy that creates the shift. So every time you're doing work, you're clearing forwards in time and backwards in time. So in all directions of time, you're doing the clearing, and it not only is affecting you individually and your lineage, it's also affecting the collective energy. So just by working on yourself, that's why it's said, when you hear people say the most important thing you can do is work on yourself, and it doesn't feel like it's enough. It's so much. Working on yourself is so much, because you are shifting that energy in all directions of time within your lineage, but you're also shift the collective energy. And the more people that do that, then are working on the same kind of clearing and uplifting, that's how that's how the world actually changes, by when you're just working on yourself. Not
Yes.
just, but
Yes. Ah, that is so powerful, and it's what we need right now. And like you said, we're in this time where it does feel like the train coming our way, and like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot that's coming. There's a lot of healing that needs to be done. There's so many wounds and pains and traumas in our human history. And like you can you can transmute this and you can heal this and work through it. And I think the really practical piece out of that too, like no matter where someone's at on their healing journey, on their spiritual journey, is those patterns and those beliefs and those triggers as you're noticing them, or if you're seeing those repeating things, that might be a signal, like a cue that there's something else going on there. Um, I'm curious, I guess just to bring it into your life a little bit more. I am not personally a mother, but I know that you're a mother and that that's been a big part of your life and your healing and doing that that generational work, right? As you are bringing up the next generation, how has this process of becoming a mother, of being a mother, impacted your healing? What would you share with the mothers listening in that regard?
Oh my God, it's like a slap in the face as to all of the things that I get to clear if I choose to rise to the challenge. My best teacher in my life has been my son. Your children reflect to you all of the things within yourself and within your lineage that are asking to be healed. Because I wasn't aware of many of the aspects. It's like they lie dormant within you.
Mm,
Like any trigger or trauma, it's the trauma lies dormant within you until you're presented with the trigger. And that's why you say this is triggering. It's because it's already within you, but you haven't been you haven't been faced with that. So you didn't know it was within you. And that's the opportunity that children give you because that's where you are in the position in which you are carrying on the tradition, the traditions. So you get to examine like, does this tradition actually make sense in the here and now? Am I in alignment with these values? Do I really want to be doing these things? Because now I'm teaching somebody else, so I get to examine that. Or wow, I've never reacted like that in my life to anything. Like even I was a teacher, a preschool teacher. I'm Montessori educated. In several different countries, I taught preschool, and yet with those children, I would never react the way that I was reacting with my own son,
mm,
because that's my own lineage, ancestral patterns coming up to the forefront, things that I'm having to look at within myself, within my pattern, but also what was passed down via my mom that I wasn't necessarily aware of because it wasn't activated yet. So those your children, if you let them be, are your greatest teachers. They will show you who you are. They will show you the patterns that are asking to be healed. And then you get to listen to that. I know it's like this. Here's your mission. Should you choose to accept it? The mission impossible. Like you've been given the mission, but you still have to choose to accept it. And then that means that you're doing the work along the way. So once it comes up and you start to notice, like, ugh, what is that? Yuck, I've never done that before, or I'm really embarrassed, or I'm ashamed, or I never want to do that again, or I'm really angry and I'm really right. That happens a lot with me where I'm angry and frustrated, but I'm right. Okay, all right. Okay, Lainey, you're right. Okay, do you want to be, it's that age-old question, do I want to be right or do I want to have a loving relationship with my child? And why am I right? Why do I think I'm right? Because I actually think that I'm right, or is this just passed on? It's like when you start to examine yourself and your reactions and your behaviors, and it starts to actually ask yourself the questions rather than just being lost in that reaction. So
Mm,
there's a lot of different ways that comes up in parenting. And then again, everything boils down to what I said previously. You got to do the work. You got to like be working with somebody. You got to find the tools. Yeah, you have to invest in yourself, in your time, in your energy, and you have to show up and do the work. And I think that that's the part that most people, I guess, don't really get, and they don't really even see as they're looking for that out. Again, it comes down to like the excuses, like how often and in how many ways are excuses running your life?
Mm.
Whether you can read a book, maybe you're at, the financial standpoint in which you can listen to podcasts for free, relatively for free. I mean, you have to pay for an internet connection and all of those things, but it's relatively free. You can buy a book. Like, there are a lot of different points of interaction in which you could be doing something proactive to create the change that you want to create in your life. So notice how many excuses you're making for yourself or in your life, and just start to notice that you're doing that and start to make a change.
I love the your child is your biggest teacher, and the ways that that allows you to see some of those patterns in a different way. Like it activates them, it brings them up, and that it's still an invitation to do the work, that you still have you always have a choice. Are you going to say yes or no? Are you going to do the work, or are you going to stay stuck in the patterning? Are you going to leave the healing work left for another generation? Yet, like, we all have a choice in the matter, and it's not easy, but it's worth it. And it requires that investment in ourselves, every step of the way. It doesn't happen by accident, it doesn't happen passively. It's not just going to be handed to us with a bow and like, here's your ideal life and your healed and whole self. That would be
What? If you figure that out, can you let me know?
Oh, and I mean, well, for me, I'm like, would we want it if it was that easy? Probably not, like that's a part
True.
of that's part of it is the process of excavating this wisdom and doing this healing work. It feels gratifying in itself because we get to know ourselves and our human experience at different layers as we move through this work. And something that came up as you were talking about your journey through motherhood is I mean, mothers are all leaders. And it as a mother, you have to show up in leadership with your child. You have to decide how you want to parent, how you want to raise, how you want them to see you, how you want to react. And all of these things, same things are coming up as we try to take leadership in our lives, in our work, in our parenting, whatever roles we're in. What are some of the, I guess, suggestions or tips that you would have for becoming embodied in that? Like really being a leader that is whole, that is healed, that is doing the work.
Well, one is let yourself off the hook a little bit, as much as we're talking about responsibility, and part of that is also letting yourself off the hook. Like, you're never gonna do it perfect. At least I don't think that you are. Maybe you are. I haven't. I haven't done it perfectly every single time, the way that I want to do it, the way that I know how to do it, the way that I teach other people how to do it. I still haven't managed to get 10 out of 10 on that. But what does improve is the reaction time. Like,
Mm.
so like I will react at something that is triggering for me. And then instead of getting like really lost in that, my mind shifts like to, oh, geez, I'm noticing this. No, I'm trying to be right. I'm trying to be controlling, whatever that looks like. Do I want to be doing that? Sometimes the answer is yes. I want to be right now. I am right now. I am right now. I'm going to sit with this right now. And that's okay. It's okay to be like who you are and where you are. The thing is just like not to get stuck with it. And I love the parallel between being a parent and being a leader is absolutely. I think probably the most powerful leadership skills I have learned is in being a parent. And there's opportunity for you to learn those parallel skills everywhere. The trick is when you're like, how do you embody it? Is one, you have to notice it. So you have to notice what you like and what you don't like. So whether you're a parent, whether you are a coach, like whether you're a teammate on a team, or maybe you're the coach of the team, or maybe you are an employer, maybe you're an employee, whatever roles that you're taking in life, a great way to start thinking about leadership and how can you use those skills in your life is notice, how do you like it? How do you like when somebody talks to you? How do you not like it? I loved when I was working in the corporate world and building my business, that I loved that I had an employee within my business and I was an employee for somebody else. So I would be able to notice, wait a minute, when I am doing this, when I've made a mistake or I haven't done a project in the way that my employer asked me to, and they're giving me feedback, I'm like, okay, well, did they clearly communicate their expectations? Now that it hasn't been done in the way that they wanted it to be done, how are they handling it? How are they speaking to me? Are they solution oriented? And then I was able to transfer that into, oh, wait a minute. Oh, crap. When I was talking to my staff, was I clear about my expectations, the deadline? How did I deal with her when I was frustrated? Oh, I see. All of these things are transferable. So notice how you, and any and every opportunity when you're interacting with somebody, how are they showing up? What are the things that you like? What are the things that you don't like? And in similar opportunities in your life, how are you applying those things? Or now that you've taken the the time to notice, how can you apply those things?
Mm.
That's really, really big for embodiment. It's not this like one big thing that happens. It would be kind of cool if it was, but it really is. It's all of the little things. It's all of the little things. The more that you start to notice, and part of the work that I do when I'm working with clients is like the first thing is called notice what you notice.
Mm.
Because most of us don't notice anything or everything in our lives. We don't notice what we're doing. We don't notice what our patterns are. We don't notice what we're feeling, and we don't notice how we're reacting or what we're reacting to. So when you can start to just notice that those are the first steps, or that's the first steps to being able to embody the qualities and characteristics that you want, because you're actually bringing it to your awareness, your conscious awareness, that one, that you desire those things, and two, to notice when you're seeing them in your life, and then three, are you actually practicing what you're preaching?
Mm. I love the simplicity and the practicality of that. I think sometimes when we get into like being embodied and being our healed self and our whole self, like some of these things are so they're such lofty ideals, and sometimes we can get lost in what that would look like. And I think you landed on it when you were like, give yourself some grace and don't be perfect. And then the simplicity of just noticing what you're noticing. Like our bodies are giving us cues all the time. Our minds are giving us cues all the time. But if we don't slow down and actually pay attention to that and integrate that and use it to influence the way we're showing up for other people, the way we're showing up for ourselves, then we're just going to keep, cyclically moving through these patterns that maybe aren't useful or just kind of stagnant or outright harmful. So it doesn't have to be this big lofty thing to start. It's just that heightening of your awareness, that paying attention. That's the entry point. I love that.
Yes, and that is a constant work in progress. And just to, yeah, to start with that, to start with the notice what you notice, and that it's simple. I know it took me so long. It took me so long. It's actually laughable because I thought it like was going to be some big grand gesture. It had to be like really complicated. Um, but it really getting to where you want to be and embodying the qualities and characteristics that you want to have. It's really simple, the steps, as you just noted. Like then just notice, just do these things. Those are simple things, but it doesn't mean that they're easy because we're in a different habit, we're in a different practice. So noticing the difference between like simple and easy.
Yeah.
And because it seems like for me, I'm like, oh, it's too simple. It's not going to work. It's got to be more complicated than that. It took me way longer because I was always looking for what was more complicated or for somebody else to come in and fix it. Oh, but if I do this modality or this healer with this healer, that's then that'll be the thing. Nah, it's not. It can maybe help. But at the end of the day, no matter who you're working with, and I hope you're working with somebody, please work with somebody. That is the fastest way to accelerate your journey for sure. There's at the end of the day, you still have to do the work. And that's a powerful completion statement.
Thank you for just putting a finer point on it. Simple doesn't mean easy. Like it's usually the simplest things we struggle with the most for the longest time. Um, yeah, and we can all be investing in ourselves all the time. As you said, you're constantly investing in getting that support for yourself. I'm constantly investing in getting that support for myself, no matter where you're at on your journey, no matter what spaces or containers you hold for other people. We're all always becoming. We're all always healing, and we need some support in that. We can't do it in isolation, at least not in the same rate, in the same capacity, with the same level of momentum. And if we want to do this work that the world needs, we need to show up for it with intentionality. So so many good things. We're getting close to our time to wrap up. I just want to put out an invitation for you, Lainey, before we wrap up and tell people where they can find you. Are there any final thoughts, final pieces of advice, final steps or pieces of wisdom? Just anything else that you're feeling called to share before we close our conversation?
Thank you so much. I've had such a great time and I love your insights. You're such a good listener and you have really an amazing ability to be able to pick out like the key points and wrap it up in a nice bow. So thank you for that. And important for the listeners is I'll reiterate a couple of points. That's because they're that important. Is one, that you matter. You matter so much, and you're here for a reason, and you're here for a purpose, and you have a mission. So just know how special you are and how amazing you are. You're a one of a kind wonder. There never has been and never will be another you ever in the history of the entire universe. And sit with that, sit with the amazingness of that. And two, you're here. You've chosen to be here. You've accepted your mission. And so do it. Do it. Do your mission. Do whatever it takes, regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your challenges, regardless of your obstacles. Start focusing on the doing of the thing. And if you need help, get help. There's help at whatever level you are at. Get it. That will help you to accelerate your journey and know that you can do it. You were given the mission because you can do it. You were given the mission because you wanted to do it. So you can do it. You're meant to do it. And I'm so excited to see what it is that you create. And if you're interested in working with me, or any of the resources that I have, please go to Lainne, LAINNE.com, and you can book a call if the calls are still available. You can send me an email. You can ask questions. You can find me on social media at Lainne Love, LAINNELOVE, Lainne Love, and you can send me a message. You can stay connected, and I am so happy to be of service to you in whatever way that I can. And thank you so much for having me. It's been really, really great.
Thank you so much, Lainey. I feel like we went a lot of places and we we did it in a short amount of time. So if you are listening, I really encourage you to go find Lainey on social media, go to her website and take this the next level deeper. We can only cover so much ground in an hour. So keep doing this exploration. Stay connected with the people that are inspiring you. And if there was something that Lainey said today that resonated with you or stirred something up in you, always encourage you to make it real. Don't leave it in the podcast. Don't leave it into the listening session on your walk or on your commute. Apply something today. What's one thing you can do from all of these tips, all of these practical suggestions that you've been given? What's one thing? Take that with you, live it out in your life, and just take really good care of yourselves out there until we meet again. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you again, Lainey.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will say goodbye and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you want more resources on thriving in your life or want details on working with me, check out my website at internallyguidedleadership.com or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Internally Guided Coach. Be gentle with yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you next time.